Hey guys, Jeremy Parvin here. Welcome back to my channel. As you know, I've created a passive income stream of over $50,000 a month with rental property income. My portfolio is worth over $6.5 million. I've done all this while working a full-time job, and on my channel, I'll teach you how you can do it too. So today I'm going to do a different format. I thought I would kind of show you a day in the life of a real estate investor. And so I'll walk you through a few things that are going on in my operations right now. I'll show you a few projects that I'm working on, and then cover a couple of current events. Also, I'm trying out a new format and a new software here, so bear with me as I work through some of this stuff. Since last week, we've broken the 7,000 view mark, and we broke 400 on the number of subscribers as we work to reach 1,000 subscribers, to which Lily is going to be giving away one pair of Apple AirPod Pros to one of our first 1,000 subscribers. If you would be so kind to hit the like button, subscribe, notification bell, and make a comment, it would help the YouTube algorithm to show this to other people so that they would subscribe too and help the channel grow. All right, operations. So as you know, the eviction moratorium has been extended through June of this year, and so we've got this month and next month. Being the first week of the month, I wanted to give you a quick update on my rent collections. People are still paying good to me. Here's a quick little cheat sheet where I write these things down on, and then I put it in QuickBooks. But the bottom line, people are paying well. I've got two people that have been kind of slow payers. I do charge them late fees, but everything's pretty much consistent the way it was for the last several years. I do charge late fees. I use the standard Tennessee Landlord Act, and so I prorate all my rents to become due on the 1st. They've got a 5-day grace period. There's a 10% penalty on the 6th, and I send out statements to everyone through email, through QuickBooks. It's very simple, and I do tell them when I'm signing the lease, if they'll pay as much as they can and let me know, I'll only charge them the 10% on the amount they don't pay, and that kind of helps. We got something with a slow payer here. He's been late for actually several years. He's been renting a house, actually lived in 2 different houses for over a decade of mine, and I've learned a lot, obviously. In the beginning, you'll listen to these excuses and let people rack up a big balance. I'm way better about that these days. If someone is more than a month, I pretty much just get them out of there. He's racked up quite a large balance. I've worked out a deal with him where if he will pay at least 20% more, I will not charge him late fees. We've been doing that now for a good 6 months or so, and that's been a great solution for him if you do have people with a big balance. The other thing going on right now is that it's spring moving time. People like to move during the spring. That has a lot to do with not only nice weather, but kids getting out of school. I read an article recently that mentioned it might be as high as 10% of people like to move during this time. So the tenants at this house are actually moving out this Saturday, and I've got new tenants moving in on Sunday. That's a pretty tight squeeze, obviously. I actually do this quite a bit. About a month or so back, I asked the tenant if they would let me show it and give them a $50 rent credit. I've got my cleaning lady scheduled to come on Saturday night, so hopefully that'll work out. If it doesn't work out, I told the new tenants that I would just have her come back at their earliest convenience the following week. So this is a great little 3-2. Just kind of thought I'd show you this a bit. I've had this house for several years. It's a great little rental house. We actually lived in this one for 6 months when the tornado hit our house about a year ago. Because people like to move during this time of the year, I try to make my leases automatically renew around this time of the year. So I do them in April, May, and June. That way it gives me enough chance. I don't want them all to come open at one time. It's hard to get my properties turned around, painted, etc., and advertised and that sort of thing. So I used to do them all at the end of May or in May, and then after they all started hitting at the same time and I got all these notices, I realized I needed to spread that out over about 3 months, and so that's what I do now. And so, for example, if I was signing someone in December, I would just take it through a year and 3 or 4 months later, and it would be on that cycle. At that time of the lease signing, the tenants don't seem to mind at all. I just tell them it's actually better for them because it locks them into this rate and they're happy with it. If they weren't, I would change it, but I've never had a problem with someone agreeing to a little bit longer than a year. And so then on my rent sheet, I put here when their lease is coming up so that I can kind of see that. And also I don't have to look all over my calendar to see when leases are coming up, and I can easily assess a group of them at a time to kind of see what's going on with market rates to see if and how much I want to increase rates for their upcoming renewals. And so back to that also, I generally don't do short-term rentals. If I do, let me show you this on my website actually. With the tornadoes around here and a lot of people moving to Chattanooga, I went ahead. I don't want to miss out on that market opportunity, right? If people do want a month-to-month or something less than a year, I charge a 25% premium on the rent and then a $1,000 cleaning and touch-up fee. I've done that a few times recently and it's worked out pretty well. I've also received a couple of other move-out notices, neither of which was expected. It's not the end of their lease. One of them is buying a house. The other one is having some domestic trouble and just needs to get out of their lease. This nice young couple with a baby has found a house they want to buy. This is a great little house I bought in a neighborhood where I've owned 3 houses now and remodeled this last year. They are moving out. I've got a guy that's coming in town to look at both of these actually. They were so kind as to allow us to show it over the weekend so that this guy can see which one he likes. What I do in this case when people need to leave early is I just say, hey, if you'll help me to get it re-rented by cleaning it up well, letting me show it to a few good people, if I can get someone to take over the lease, I'll let you out of your lease in terms of how much you owe for future rent. And legally, you can't charge 2 people people rent. Now I could sit there and let this thing sit empty for a few months, or let that guy delay buying his house, which is an option. But another thing, he mentioned that he could wait until the end of his lease when it ends in September, but I told him it's actually better for me to rent in May, June, or July before school starts back in August, because that's when families that like to live in single family homes like to hunker down with their kids in school. And so he's going to talk to the buyer to see if he can move out even sooner, which will probably work out better for them, and I can get this thing locked down in the summertime. So a great little house we remodeled. Love this little subdivision. Like to buy another house in there. I plan to. There's one that's a HUD foreclosure, but that's on hold. And then the other house that is coming vacant that was a surprise to me is this one of the 4 I bought last year. So he's going to check out these 2 houses. What's nice about this, it has a big unfinished basement where he can put all of his stuff out of storage in here, and he plans to buy or build over the next 2 years. This is a really nice feature a lot of people look for, is an unfinished basement. The other one had a fenced-in backyard and was a ranch, and that's actually my favorite. That's the most popular in my opinion. The other thing I wanted to say is that when people do move out, it's a great opportunity for you to reevaluate market rents, and generally over the last few years, it's been an opportunity for me to increase rents. I've got a spreadsheet where I track the amount of rent that I've been charging over the value of the property, and so my average of all my rents is basically 0.72%, so less than 1%, and then I did a normalization to exclude some things that were people who had lived in my houses for many years, and some that were lease purchases, so the rent price didn't really reflect market, or it was an expensive house where you can't get as much rent relative to the value of the house. And so when I got this normalized, how much am I renting my houses out for fairly recent, last year or 2 rents, divided by the updated Zillow values, which haven't been increasing as well, I get 0.08%, or 0.0082 is what you would multiply by the value of your house. So for example, if you had a $100,000 house times 0.0082, so you would get $820 rent for that property worth $100,000. Obviously, you would check out Zillow, see my video. I'll put a link up here on how to use Zillow. You can look to see what they sold for last, as well as what the rental estimate is on them. And you can also see what other things are renting for in that same area when you zoom in on the map like I did in my video. And I've got another house that's coming available that some folks are in the middle of a lease purchase, but they really don't want to buy it. I randomly had someone find this house, same as the other guy who's coming in town this weekend, and they asked me if this house were available. I told them my lease purchase contract coming up, but I knew that the tenants were not really interested in completing that purchase. The current tenants actually allowed me to show it to him, so I would let him out of his, and I'm working with both of those folks to try to make a smooth transition to finally get this house sold. So it's a nicer house than typical. I used to live in this house. It's on the golf course, all brick. I'll be working to transition that house between the 2 different tenants. Another thing going on with operations is that with my property maintenance, I've got a full-time guy that works for me. Sometimes he has a helper when we're doing bigger projects, or I'll pull in some expert when needed, but we're trying to minimize doing any kind of improvements while we're waiting on a response from the tax assessment appeals as they go out and do on-site visits on several of my properties. So in the meantime, we're doing things like checking dampness in the crawl spaces, putting dehumidifiers, sump pumps, and that kind of thing, opening up the crawl space vents, trimming the limbs and things a foot off the house, shrubs and things like that, inspecting the plumbing, roof leaks, cleaning out the gutters, and making a list of maintenance items that we need to get to now that it's warm that we've not been able to for the last several months during the cold. My maintenance guy recently did this week about 6 properties here. He just simply writes the few little notes about things that he did and things that he needs to do, and I'll update my spreadsheet that we hit that house and add to our maintenance list some things that we need to get to prioritize those. I'll put a link to the video I did on property maintenance that you might want to review if that interests you. Oh, and another thing that I should mention too, I finished doing the accounting of someone who had just moved out of one of my houses about a month ago. Legally, you have a month to give them an updated statement and return their security deposit, or let them know if you need to keep it. And this was the case where they had done a little more than typical wear and tear on the property. They were only there for, I want to say, a year and a half, maybe 2 years. And the Landlord-Tenant Act will expressly say that carpet and paint should have a lifespan of 3 years. So if someone lives there 3 years and you have to replace all the carpet and painting, you can't charge them. But if those things are in good condition when they move in and they were there less than those, you can prorate the amount of the cost that it costs you to be applied towards their deposit or for an additional balance. They also moved out early because they bought a house. They were also responsible for continuing to mow the grass, and I had to pay a guy to mow it a couple of times. They turned off the utilities, which they're not supposed to, and I had to get it turned back on and pay some of those. They had a small $1,000 deposit, and I had a few $1,000s of repairs, some of which should have been applicable to them. When I was finished collecting my expenses, I simply contacted them and said, hey, look, here's what it cost me. I think I should give you a credit for about 1/3 of these things that are beyond normal wear and tear. Would you just like to settle for your $1,000 deposit and call it even. And they knew that was a great deal for them. They said okay. And so I just wrote off the balance in their account and moved on. If accounts are small like that, it's generally not worth your time to fool with. And obviously document that you have communicated with them. I did this through email, so then I put it in my little email folder for that property in case they ever question whether or not I did that. So that was a quick update on operations. Project-wise, I'm still waiting on my refinancing with Pinnacle Bank that I mentioned a few times in my video. When I do that, I'm actually going to have a cash out refi where I'll just go ahead and finance in some of the equity and get some money back at financing to lock into these great rates. And then once they close out, I'm going to get a line of credit where I can borrow some additional money. Between those two sources, I should have enough money to buy a few more houses for cash. When I use the cash out refi money, I'm going to want to use that pretty soon so that I'm not just paying interest on it for nothing. I won't have to go back and work on refinancing that to pay back my line of credit on a couple of properties. I have 3 clients that want me to buy them houses that have between $40,000 and $100,000. I love doing those lease purchase deals. Oh, and let me show that. I've actually put something on my homepage about it. I don't even advertise, and I get a few of these a month. If you look here, I talk about doing a lease purchase plan, and then you click over here and it describes it. I've got this little formula. I click here to get started, and it takes them to a little Google form that it just populates a spreadsheet. I get an email notification, and I can see how much that they plan on putting down in beds and baths and some of those few basic elements to see if it's something that interests me right now. So I've got 3 of those people waiting. Another project I'm working on, of course, is doing my personal tax return, which includes my properties. I own them all in my own name as a sole proprietor instead of having an LLC. Just something in my state, my accountant and lawyer suggested doing that and just getting an additional umbrella policy to protect myself. Federal income taxes are due May 17th, so I'll be wrapping that up. I've just postponed doing so because I have to pay in this year. Another thing I'll be doing with this downtime while I'm waiting to get some more capital and buy some more properties is to work on my insurance claim for my personal property from our tornado that we had last year. I use State Farm, and you have 2 years to do that. This April or Easter was 1 year, and I purposefully waited on that because we're building a house. You may have heard me mention that in some of my videos. We just don't feel very safe here living next to trees after going through that traumatic incident. I thought if I just wait on some of this, I don't have to have furniture delivered and move it a couple of times and beat it up. So with that, I've had some questions about our new house, and I thought I'd share a little bit of that with you. That's kind of fun and exciting. It's a lot of work also. So I bought 37 homes, and this will be the 3rd one that I've had built. There's no such thing as a perfect property. When you're finished, if you can get it to 80-90% of what you wanted, I think you're doing pretty well. But it has been fun with the different experiences that I've had bringing those together, and the team that I'm working with on this is just phenomenal. I wanted to show you a few pictures. So this is a rendering of the outside of the house. It's in a really small subdivision where the houses are very narrow. We actually have a garage on the side. Most of them are in the back. There's a house plan, and as you can see here, this is a tornado shelter that doubles as our master closet. And then upstairs we have a little workout room, and this will be my new office. So here's what it looks like the last time I went out there. Basically, it's framed in. We're waiting on the shingles. They should be there anytime. This is my office. This is the workout room, garage. I'll have a workshop over here with a wall. It'll be real clean in the garage, and you could have messy in that workshop area. Master bedroom, back of the house, screened in porch, street view. Here's one of my favorite design elements. It's a steel front door, and this is this same door is on the house of like Kylie Jenner, I believe, or one of the Kardashians. So they've installed the heating and air pre-installation. The plumbing and electric are coming next. We've chosen the appliances, plumbing fixtures, tile, granite, some furniture we had to buy, obviously, as I mentioned. We need to choose the lighting. We started back last June, and now it's scheduled to be finished around October. Very long construction schedule with COVID going on, so many delays. I was talking to the builder this week, and he mentioned that since we signed an agreement to buy it, his costs have gone up about $50,000. A lot of that was in the lumber, but just all building materials are costing a fortune. He mentioned that people think that people building houses are making a fortune. You know, he said if you own a house that's existing and want to sell it now, you might make a fortune, but the problem is if you want to buy another house, you're going to lose all that money buying the next house or absorb it in the next house. So on our end of this house, even though we signed an agreement, there are a lot of allowances that we have in many different areas, and the cost for most of those things have been increasing as well. Things like appliances. I think we're about 2.5 times the appliance allowance that we were given. And also lighting, which we've not finished, flooring, brick, siding, cabinets, countertop, plumbing fixtures, fence, all those things we have an allowance, and they're going up every month, it seems. I think, and my builder thinks too, and what I've read, that the cost increases on building material are probably going to plateau and start to come down. I don't believe that's happened yet, nor does my builder, but I think they've peaked and we'll start seeing them come down over the next year or two. Something that he said, and I've had a couple of tenants do this, sell their houses and go camp out renting for a year or two until building prices come back down. I think that's a pretty decent strategy for people who want to just sell their house and get a lot of money and know they want to move sometime in the future. So that's a quick update on some projects I'm working on. The last thing I want to do is just give you a quick update on sort of what's going on in the world related to real estate investing. And one of those things is interest rates. Taking a quick peek at that, rates were at a low back in December, early January, and they've come up some since then. Just recently, they've come back down a hair, and you can see here the 30-year fixed, or the blue line here, is actually right back under 3%, which is great. Another interest rate measure that I'm looking at, because this is applicable to my refinancing that I'm doing on my portfolio of all 23 rental properties, is my banker said that loan, that money that they loaned to me is actually based on the 10-year treasury. That's continued to go up, and I hope that he's going to maintain his rate with me that we spoke about recently. But our home will obviously be a mortgage, so the mortgage rate would apply to that. And the other thing I wanted to mention from current events is just the stock market. So this is an S&P 500, or the top 500 stocks in the market. I believe we reached a new all-time high today, so that's still in full swing. So let me know if you like this new format or not. I thought I might do an update like this maybe once a month or so, a little about operations, projects, and kind of current events. As always, thank you for watching, and please hit the like button if you enjoyed this, and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you so much, and until next time, I hope you have a great week.